there, my name is Jill Tiny. This is the BeCollaboration podcast called The Journey of Possibility. What could happen? Who knows? I'm really pleased to say that I'm joined today by Sanjay Shah, who has a remarkable business and has an amazing specialism that we're going to delve into around emotional intelligence. So I think he's going to find out if I'm emotionally intelligent or not. Whether we'll have a temper tantrum over it, I don't know, maybe. So Sanjay, welcome. Lovely to have you on the podcast.
Hello, Jill.
Lovely to have you here. I don't know if you'll see behind me, every so often it's been pelting down with rain. I mean, talk about April showers in May. It's been quite crazy. So hopefully the sun will come out soon and you'll see a different version out the back there. So Sanjay, you've been part of BeCollaboration for coming up for a year, something like that?
That's right. Yeah.
What was it that first attracted you to get involved with the community?
I kept on hearing about BeCollaboration from one of the other members, Jackie. Mm-hmm. And every now and then, whenever we spoke, and we used to speak fairly frequently, mm-hmm. She would say, "Oh, you've got to meet Jill, you've got to meet Erkan." And so it was always at the back of my mind, and I was a bit intrigued as to what it was all about, because a lot of people speak about collaboration, but they don't necessarily practice it. And it turns into more of a competition when you really get down to it.
Yes.
So I didn't really pay that much attention initially, but she kept on mentioning it. And if Jackie keeps on mentioning something, then you've got to pay attention to that. So exactly. One day I just happened to be free on the day that there was a BeCollaboration meeting, but it was in London, which is close to 100 miles from where I live. Yeah. But I thought, okay, I've got the day free, I'm going to invest my time, and so I caught a train down to London and to the meeting. And what really got to me straight away was the friendliness and the openness of the people. That there really was a community which felt like it was open to sharing and to speaking with each other and to really get to know each other, because the danger with a lot of networking type meetings is you go there, you exchange cards, but you never really get to know the person. And I'm very much of a people person that likes to get to know people, especially people that I'm going to work with or collaborate with or recommend to my customers. And straight away I got that here was a real group that seemed to be doing that. And I think within probably half an hour of being at that meeting, and I was there for the rest of the afternoon, I knew I was going to join. I had no idea at that time how much it was going to cost or what it was going to be, but I knew I was going to join, even though I would have to travel close to 100 miles every time.
That's a long way.
I decided that it was worth the time that I would spend on that.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people, what they say is there's something in the air, there's like an energy. And one of the famous quotes we've had from one of our guests was like, well, you're just a bunch of people that love each other. And although that sounds really flippant, the energy in the room is, we've done an exercise of how we can raise the energy and raise the vibration and raise this kind of essence of anything is possible. And that's why I think a lot of people do feel this, well, they're all coming in and they hug each other. What's that all about? Well, if you're kind of left brain, detail, analytical driven type person, sometimes you're like, thanks very much, but I'll shake your hand if I want to do that. But it's just kind of understanding that because we're all there and we want to make a difference, we want to make a difference from the global perspective of what if we could change the world, what would that look like? As opposed to, or including, how could I make a difference to you sitting next to me? And I know one of the first things you said to me at that meeting was like, I think I can help the people here. I think it would be amazing. And you've obviously spoken to various different people, but what's lovely is it's a two-way street, is they want to help you as well. So you're not just coming to go, well, I'm going to share all my stuff and then they're going to take it and they're going to use it. And then what's left for me? It's they want to help you with their stuff, whatever that happens to be.
Yeah. And I remember coming in for the first time and just as you were speaking out this thought, it's a bit cheesy, but I'll share it. We should have a new theme tune. And I don't know who wrote the song, but it's the one titled Love is in the Air.
Oh, yes.
The reaction of people as they walk into that.
That's true. That is very true. We could do that. I've had so many theme tunes. The other one was Pharrell Williams with Happy.
Yeah.
I thought, I wonder if he'd let us have copyright of that so we can use it as our theme tune. Maybe one day. So what got you on the journey to emotional intelligence? Where did that all come from?
Quite simply, when I first, I guess, started on this path, I felt I was screwed up. I'd been through a lot of trauma in my life. Nothing kind of in the scale of trauma that other people have been through, but it was traumatic for me.
Yeah.
And in that process, I realized that actually I was far more sensitive than anybody thought I was. Oh. But the sum total of that was internally I felt that I was screwed up and it couldn't be put right. And life was what life was. Right. The only thing is it got worse. And I arrived at a point at which I knew I had to do something, or what was the point of living? Wow. And very fortunately, things started to happen, and that led to a whole series of coincidences or synchronicity. I don't know which one, and I don't really care, because where I arrived at is a completely different place to where I was. They couldn't be further apart. Wow. And that's the result of the journey that I find myself on, and the people that I met along the way, and the connections I made. And that it's by no means over. But what I know is the guy that's standing here is not the guy that felt screwed up.
So how long ago was that? When did that journey start?
I guess the first kind of elements of it were kind of in the late 80s, early 90s, and around 91, I arrived at a point at which life really couldn't get any worse, and I found myself doing what I call bouncing along the bottom of life, which is getting up each day, putting on the mask, and going out into the world, and everybody thought I was okay, but deep down inside, I felt terrible.
Oh, it's horrible feeling.
And I kept up that pretense.
How long did you keep it up for?
3 years. The best part of 3 years.
Yeah.
Then, kind of around that time, something really fortunate happened. Is I got made redundant, and that threw me out of the job that I was in, and I came back to Birmingham, where I originated from.
So was it the job that was causing the unhappiness, or was it someone?
No, I kind of ended up in the job, and it was a nice, comfortable job. It was in chartered accountancy, but I didn't really enjoy it, and yet I didn't know what I could do to get out of it, because I felt so rotten. And hence kind of getting up each day and putting on the mask. Yeah. So being made redundant actually threw me out of that situation into another one, which I didn't enjoy at the beginning. I was back with my parents. I ended up working in the family business, which is the very reason I moved away in the first place, to avoid doing that. And years later, I found myself in it temporarily, but that temporary job turned into full-time for a number of years, because my dad's health took a turn for the worse. Right. And then when he passed away, the owner of the business decided that he wanted to get out, because he didn't want that stress. And because it was a family business, he asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, well, I don't really want to stay here. So he put the business up for sale, it got sold, and I found myself without a job again. But now, in the intervening period, whilst I was there, because it was a family business, I could actually take time off to train myself up in various different skills. And that's where I kind of really got interested in personal development, and went to do all sorts of courses, and then ended up training in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and hypnosis, and then journey therapy and various other things. So I was pretty well skilled in various disciplines, but so the job which I wanted to avoid actually gave me the freedom to take time off, because of the nature of the business. And again, this is what I'm saying is, this is a blessing that quite often we see as a curse, but if we really open up to it, we can see what the potential is.
So when you were a child at school, say 7 or 8 years of age, what was it you used to love doing? What was the thing that shone for you?
If I'm honest, childhood wasn't fun. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't fun because I wasn't a popular kid. I was the odd one out, or it felt like that. And because I was kind of clumsy, people made fun of that. I wasn't particularly clever, so I grew up in Kenya where there were two levels of class, the upper tier and all the rest. And I was just about in the upper tier, but not really excelling in it anyway. So in that upper tier, I was seen as one of the people that couldn't cut it. And so I was made of fun there as well. So I was made fun of whilst I was there because I wasn't regarded as one of the brainy ones.
Right.
And then when we came to England, a transformation took place because overnight, the moment I entered junior school here, because I was still at that age, from being regarded as a bit of a dunce, I was regarded as a genius because I knew the 12 times table by heart and I could spell perfectly as well.
The important stuff, really.
So now I wasn't popular because I was a teacher's pet.
Oh, you can't win, can you?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? The British dynamic. I remember going to school and being in the naughty class in the school, which was a pretty rough school in the area. So it's like the lowest of the low. But I was numerate and literate, and I could pick that up relatively easily. But I would never dream of letting my peers know that I could do it, because then you were bullied because you were clever. So it was seen you had to kind of play it all down and not.
Yeah, and I guess with me, I didn't know the culture. I didn't really know how things operated here. So I just did so they gave me a test. I answered the questions. I didn't think anything beyond that. And the very first test was on the very first day of school. Right. And so I just answered it and quickly found out that wasn't the clever thing to do either.
It's horrible though, isn't it? Why can't children, well, obviously it's what they're learning from their parents and the people around them, but why are they not celebrating success rather than making you feel awful around it? So it's interesting. So you were relatively academic and clever from the British perspective, but what were the subjects and the things that you enjoyed doing as a child? It might have been out of school. What was
it was out of school, and I became quite introverted here. I was a lot more extroverted, I think, when I was in Kenya. And the culture changed, the change in country and climate and people. I went in on myself. But the key thing, I think, that really kind of exacerbated that was I discovered the books and libraries, and I became a real bookworm. So at the age of 11, I was reading anything up to 5 books a week. And I was reading something like The Lord of the Rings at the age of 11, and I didn't know at that time that apparently you're not meant to read it until later on. It was just something that I got into.
It was your escape, wasn't it, into a different world?
Yeah, and it was an escape into this fantasy world of whatever book I was in, because I wasn't bullied. I was the hero. And what that did was 2 things, though. That really improved my English and my grasp of English, which then had its own repercussions as well. And the other thing which wasn't so great was because I became an introvert, I felt socially inadept. So whenever I met people, I felt a bit awkward.
Do you think there's a lot of discussion around this, isn't there? There's introvert, extrovert, omnivert, is it the other one? Do you feel that you were naturally, as a child, an extrovert, and as a result of coming to the UK, became an introvert, or do you think you're naturally an introvert and you were allowed to be an extrovert back in Kenya?
I think I'm naturally more introverted, but in Kenya, the society was different. So you weren't really allowed to be introverted, even if you were. The society was a lot more open. There was a lot more social. And so you didn't really get a chance to be introverted. When we came here, because the society was very different, and the front door was closed, and people wouldn't just walk through it as they would back there, because all the neighbours